Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blind Squirrel Talk, famous in a small town. I'm Lulu.
I'm Kim.
And this is Noah Irwin.
Hello.
And we're excited about having him today because guess what? He's going to talk about, I don't want to scare you off, all things snakes and salamanders, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
I'd love to. So I have a undergrad as well as like a master's degree in biology. So my major focus on stuff is like herpetology in general, which includes snakes and lizards and frogs and salamanders and stuff like that. So anything reptiles and amphibians. I'm super excited to share everything I have for y'all. I wouldn't consider myself a professional on the subject, but I'm definitely well learned, and I'm hoping to only talk about stuff that I'm well
You're so
looking to learn
polished.
about.
Oh my
Thank you.
Well, where'd you go to school? We got to know that first. Let's start
Absolutely.
from the beginning.
So I spent my undergrad in a small little college in Demorest, Georgia named Piedmont University. And when I got there, I had no expectation of wanting to learn anything about snakes and amphibians and reptiles or anything like that, right? But I started doing undergrad research with a man named Dr. Carlos Camp, and he really opened up my world to salamanders in general. And it was so impressive. The Appalachian Mountains that we live in every single day is actually one of the most salamander hotspots of the world.
Really?
And that was super cool.
What?
Absolutely. So it's like most species are found here in the Appalachian Mountains, which is actually really interesting because there's a lot of talk and like contention about where these guys first came from. And because of this hotbed within the Appalachian Mountains, people believe that they were first here and then kind of spread it out a bit more. So it is super cool. Then after that, I got my degree in just regular biology, and I was offered to go down to Southeastern Louisiana University, and that's where I got my master's, and I studied salamanders there as well. So I know a lot about salamanders, but I'm also have a huge passion for snakes, and like especially water snakes. There's just nothing more exciting than like grab them out of the stream or grabbing them off of the forest and like being able to hold them in your hand. They're just majestic creatures, and
And
I especially
poisonous, some of them.
Some of them, but the ones that are not are really fun, and like they give you little kisses, and I like it.
They do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I mean, mostly without tongue, but yeah.
Did they bite you?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you been bitten?
Oh, all the time. I like to think of it this way too, right? So they're really small, a lot of them. The way that you can really tell if they're going to give you a really fierce bite is by how big their jaws are. If you kind of think about it, a lot of their jaws are around the same size as like a cat or something like that. So like if you've been bit hard by like a cat, those tend to actually hurt a whole lot more than like a snake. They normally just kind of strike and leave and stuff like that. So.
Okay, that's good to know. I guess. Wow. So tell us about what you were doing with salamanders in Louisiana, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So I went down there and I worked under Dr. Chris Beachy, and he works with larval salamanders, which is really interesting. So,
what is that? Tell me what that is.
Absolutely. So like larval salamanders are the stage that comes right after eggs within metamorphic animals. So like if you're kind of thinking about something like a frog, right? It goes from egg to tadpole to then having a frog. Salamanders are the exact same way, so long as they are something called biphasic, which just means that they're metamorphic. It means that they have two life cycles, biphasic. So they hatch out of the egg in the water.
You could be an excellent teacher. Just saying.
Well, thank you. I had to teach my way through there in order to pay, in order to get my master's program down there. So I know a little bit. Yeah, so like they're really interesting. So they lay their eggs in the stream, they hatch out of the stream, and then they live in a aquatic living form. So they have a lot of larval characteristics. So that's stuff like gills or large tail fins, stuff that helps them like live in the water, right? Mm-hmm. After that, they lose those characteristics and take on an adult terrestrial form. So they lose their gills because you don't need gills out on the surface because you're just breathing in air, right?
Right.
So they go from egg, larva, and then finally a like terrestrial adult. Not all of them do that, but the ones that I was working with did. But
Did you know that?
No.
Could you see the transformation?
Oh, absolutely. So that was kind of what I was working on. I wanted to see how long does it take you to go from a larval form to then an adult form. So what I was doing was I ended up collecting salamanders all the way from Louisiana to North Georgia with the idea that they likely differ because of a lot of different environmental factors, chiefly meaning like temperature. So, like you would expect in the more northern states, really North Georgia and the mountains and stuff like that, it'd be colder. The idea is that the warmer it is, the faster they metamorphose or like get out of that larval form and like become an adult. The reason for that is because of a lot of internal factors, right? You can kind of think of it as like if you're heating up a chicken, the hotter the temperature, the faster it becomes a chicken, right? A lot of these chemical reactions are happening faster in like a lot of the warmer temperatures. So what I actually found was that there was no big difference between the northern and the southern, which is really, really interesting and kind of goes to show that there's a lot of interplay. But to answer your question about are you able to see the difference? Absolutely. So what I was doing was I would take them out of the stream, I'd put them in a baking dish, but I wouldn't bake them. I would leave them there and I'd take pictures of them.
In water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in water, but I would have a ruler there so that I could use the ruler as a reference. So I would measure the ruler and then measure the salamander on the same picture, and then I'd be able to show how large that salamander was with a reference. The idea was that I would then take those measurements, put them on a histogram, and a histogram is just a bar graph, so you have the X and Y axis, or the X and Y axis, and then you just kind of come up, and they just make little clusters of sizes. The idea is if you have a unimodal, which would be just one cluster, something that looks like a bell curve, just a U, then there would only be one size class, or only one age class, which would suggest to me that they're metamorphosing in just one summer, right? But if you had two, well, then they're metamorphosing in 2 summers, or almost the full year worth. So like they hatch in that summer, the next summer they come back after that full year, they're hatching again. So you can actively tell what stage they're at, but it also is very specifically looking at the stream itself. I use size in order to tell that difference, but if you're looking at a stream that just naturally has a lot larger salamanders, then when you look at there, you'll see them a little bit more size skewed, if that would make sense. So you would need to do collections across a whole time period to be able to say this is this old, but there are ways to do it.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
2 years worth of research, just kind of like balled up into like, I don't know, several words, like several sentences worth of words.
So if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
all this wonderful information that you've gained in college, what will you do for a living?
Yeah. So what I've kind of thought is that I've gone to school for too long to not do what I want to do. And what I have a passion for is being out in the field. And what I'm super excited about is that I'm working with a biological consulting company that works with military bases that go out and ensuring that those facilities are of high quality so that we can support all of our war fighters across the seas by making sure that their facilities here are well kept. In order to do that, I would go out there and I'd take surveys of, let's say, all the different snakes or frogs or stuff that are on base and just kind of give them a map that says, hey, you have these things focused here and you have these things focused here. If you're looking to put in a shooting range, maybe don't put it over here where like you only have this one frog. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. Or going to make sure that like bald eagles' nests are not being endangered by setting up new things, right? So it's just taking a good survey of their facilities so that they can expand in a very responsible way.
You're the caretaker of the universe.
I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
Well, somebody's got to look out for the frogs.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And the eagles.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Thank you.
That is fascinating.
Thank
So
you.
you'll
I
do
love
a
it.
lot of traveling.
Yes, more than I'd like, but it'll be nice.
Yeah.
It'll be nice. It'll be nice to see a lot more of like the United States. And the fun thing about it too is that a lot of the different animals that I like to study, whether they be the herps that I talked about before with those reptiles and amphibians, or they be birds, they're kind of really focused in different regions of the United States. So
Will you stay only in the United States, or will you go out of the country?
So there's chances that I'll be doing bat surveys in some place like Cuba, like over in like Guantanamo Bay. But mostly it's going to be focused in like the United States. I got a job potentially coming up in New Jersey, and then there's some in Virginia and Georgia, and then over in Texas and Louisiana and stuff like that.
Fascinating.
That
Okay.
is.
Thank you.
You're never going to get bored.
I hope not.
No. No. Well, you've been around Maysville for a while. And in fact, you'll be getting married at our
I
beautiful
will.
park in September. Don't,
will.
don't
That's
crash this
exciting.
wedding. we're not going to say
Invite
the
only.
date. But so you love Maysville like we do too. In fact,
absolutely.
your fiance grew up in Maysville.
Yes,
Grew
yes,
up-
like around that area, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So you're all things Maysville. So we have a famous snake handler here.
Who knew?
Who knew? Okay, so
Absolutely.
Speaking of snakes, it's summer. It's time for snakes to be coming out. All right, talk to the people in Maysville about, okay, good snakes, bad snakes, what to do if you see a snake. What happens?
Oh, absolutely. So the first thing I strongly recommend is that before you ever interact with any snake, that you are confident in being able to ID it first. I absolutely understand that, like, if you're like sitting there on your porch and you have kids around and you start to notice a timber rattler around, do whatever you have to do in order to like protect your kids. I absolutely understand that. The reason why I really stress knowledge and being able to identify these snakes is that most snakes you'll run into pose no risk to you or your family whatsoever and play a vital role in the ecosystem. Something that is not well known is that they're looking at county records of snakes and stuff like that. One of the major things that people always mention is stuff like water moccasins and cottonmouths, like coming out of everywhere, you know, like that must be a water moccasin, it's black, it must be a water moccasin, all these things. A really interesting thing that we've actually seen is that based off of county records, there have been no county records of cottonmouths, otherwise known as water moccasins, north of Athens-Clarke County. So what I'm saying is that you're likely
Wow.
not going to be running into them. As the world kind of warms, we might see them kind of push up, but they're kind of more focused on the western half of Georgia. So all the way up to like northwestern Georgia, kind of comes down and makes a U. But the areas that like you're living right now, if you're around like the Banks County or Jackson County area, you're likely not seeing cottonmouths. And if you are, please take pictures and send them to like your local representatives so that we can actually go ahead and get those records of those snakes being there. So what I would say is you're likely not seeing the things that you think that you're seeing. And if you are seeing it, it's super cool. And I'd rather you document it than kill it immediately.
That's a tall order for somebody who's afraid of snakes.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, it could just be as simple as just taking a picture. There's a lot of really good citizen science programs out there from things like iNaturalist, which a lot of y'all are living out there in the field and working with your hands, and I love that side of things. But what you can do is if you ever run into any snakes or frogs or any cool plants or anything that you see, you're able to just take a picture and be able to pull up iNaturalist and be able to post that picture right there with just some general like location tips that then are being able to document that stuff. Because a lot of those records are actually being used to update statewide records and being used for like national wide projects. So it's definitely taking like a really small grassroots movement and making a lot of good out of it. So if you are interested in that, I could not recommend iNaturalist enough for things like herps and plants and birds and stuff like that. But if you're really interested in doing birds as well, things like eBird and Merlin and the Merlin app, which works with Burnell Bird Lab. Yeah.
So iNaturalist is an app.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's free on your phone.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm learning so much.
I know.
Some interesting things about being able to like identify some snakes. Something that's really good to know is that a really good tell for any venomous snake that you'll come across, besides the really obvious kind of like red, black, and yellow that everybody's already looking out for, is that they have a slanted eye. So if you're close enough to be able to see and be able to confirm, if you see at their eye that they have a more cat-like eye where it's a line instead of an actual like round pupil, you know it's venomous and do not touch it, right?
Oh, okay. So if it's like that, don't touch it.
Absolutely, don't
Okay.
touch it.
All right.
Another really interesting thing is that knowing the difference between things like banded and striped can also make a big difference. So for
What is
instance,
the difference?
So a cottonmouth is banded because they are horizontally striped, right? It goes across their body, right? Widthwise. So it's going across, that's a band. It's almost like a wedding ring, right?
Okay.
It'd be a band across. Whereas stripes are from top to end, vertically, right? There are no venomous vertically striped snakes, right?
Ah,
that are
that's
very
good to know.
clearly like that, right? So like you'll run into things like garter snakes, right? So like that's a very good example of yellow lines running down the back, right? The only example that you might see of a striped venomous snake are those timber rattlers, because some of them are really, really pretty, really, really young, and they have that very bold yellow stripe that goes down their back. But they also have all the other features that I'll talk about here in a second, as well as that very obvious rattling-like tail whenever you approach them. Yeah. But there's also a difference with the banding as well, right? Some of the snakes that I absolutely love are just common water snakes, right? And that's what you'll mostly find out there in their streams, right? Or just common water snakes. You might find Graham snakes or also queen snakes, but they're just interested in eating things like crawfish, so they won't even hurt you whatsoever. But these banded water snakes are really cool. So they have that same horizontal band, just like a wedding ring, but they're a lot more thick on the top, right? So like a lot of these snakes are kind of like, they almost look like corn snakes, but like with a much different pattern, right? So like they have those little saddles on top. So very thick on the top, very thin on the bottom. Whereas these cottonmouths or copperheads and stuff like that, they have very thin tops and very thick bottoms. So it's almost like an hourglass coming up. So it's just like those, black widows. If you see hourglasses on your snakes, do not touch them.
That's a lot to soak in. I mean, I'm sorry, no snake is a friend of mine.
I think they serve some really good purposes that are not necessarily immediately evident, right? So a lot of predators are very important on making sure that primary consumers, which are the animals that go and eat plants and stuff like that, are held in check. So for instance, if you are not controlling your mice problems or your rat problems, they might be out there eating up a lot of the seeds for your next wheat harvest or stuff like that, or out there eating a lot of the natural grass seeds and allowing a lot more invasive plants to come in. But you kind of see these impacts to where if you have an uncontrolled primary consumer issue where it's just eating up all these plants, you see issues going up the food chain. So they might not be immediately evident that they are serving a immediate and important role, but they definitely are playing a big role behind the scenes.
Wow.
And they're cute.
Have you ever seen a cute snake?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Ooh. Where do they live? I mean, like, are they? It says don't step over the log. There might be a snake. Or don't
Like
go
the
in the
wood
water.
pile
There might be
or
a
the-
snake.
Yeah, absolutely. So like they live in a lot of different habitats. I mean, you're kind of talking about snakes in general. They serve a lot of different purposes and they are found in a lot of different locations. You know, I mean, like you'll find a water snake in water and you'll find a corn snake throughout the fields looking in areas. They might be underneath tin sheets, stuff like that. So some major places that you might want to be wary of them is if you have some, let's say, like wood pile stacks outside your house, whether like they just be like wood logs, or if you have something like wood siding stacked up or metal sheets or stuff like that, like they love to be there because it offers them cover and they're able to soak up the sun directly through those sheets. You might see them out in the woods, right? Some of the classic woodland snakes that you'll see around are things like rat snakes and stuff like that, right? You'll know that it's a rat snake because it's climbing, you know? Not all the
I didn't
times,
know
but if you
that.
see a climbing snake, it's almost always a rat snake.
Okay.
You know, like they're super agile, super impressive, the way that they're able to just kind of work up these almost seemingly smooth surfaces. So yeah, like you'll just find them in a lot of different locations, which is also very interesting because if you're interested in learning a lot about snakes or encountering a lot of snakes or working on your life list of all the snakes that you found, that you can find them in all these different locations, right? So it's always very exciting, and no matter where you are, there's probably a good chance that you could find one around you someplace.
I know in the barn in Jefferson, there is a rat snake that's probably 20 feet long. No, seriously.
Yeah.
And he's like that big around, and he'll go up the barn, and literally his head is at the top of the barn, and his tail is at the ground.
Yeah.
You've seen the barn.
Yes, absolutely. And
How big
it's
will
a
they
tall
get?
barn. I can't say to how tall they'll get. I wish I was better informed about their total length and stuff like that. But something that is really interesting about snakes is that they grow forever, right? They have something called indeterminate growth. So they'll just keep eating and growing, eating and growing, eating and growing, and that's why they're shedding, right? Is that every single time they shed, they're actually kind of growing at that time. You'll just see that they start to slow down in their growth so that you can have a pretty accurate range, right? So like you can say, yeah, like they mostly get around 7 foot, 7.5 foot, right? Okay. Well, that seems very
Big.
It seems very range. Like it seems very big, and it also seems like a large range. But it really just depends on how old they are, and how well they've been eating throughout their lifetime.
Well, all the chickens are gone, so he's been eating well. He's been eating very well.
Yes, absolutely. I bet he's been helping out, like keeping those chickens safe, like from all like the rats. But I guess he just did the job himself, right?
Oh,
Yep.
I just assumed all snakes ate chickens.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they could.
Yeah. What do snakes eat? Most snakes.
Critters?
Yeah, a lot of
Okay.
critters. So like you'll see a lot of variation, right? But yeah, like critters just in general, right? So like they'll eat stuff like mice and rats and frogs, and some of them eat like crawfish and stuff like that. So like pretty much just whatever's in the area. A lot of them are generalists. Some of them eat other snakes, right? So like a lot of the king snakes, and like the ones that you'll run across around here are really cool. They're all black with little white rings that go around them, and they're called Eastern king snakes. And they're really interesting because they'll actually eat other snakes, and they have a penchant to want to eat things like cottonmouths and rattlesnakes, and it's super
that's good.
cool. There's this beautiful rookery rock up in the mountains. I won't say where, but it has a lot of rattlesnakes that go there every single year, like to go ahead and lay their eggs and stuff, and to like grow their young. And it's super beautiful. I love seeing them there. But they love to hang out with all these cottonmouths, right? So it's like, it seems like they don't mind each other. You know, it's like these snakes are just one big happy family. But then you'll see a little king snake come on through and come underneath the rock, and then all of a sudden, shoo, they're all gone. and it's just that like proverbial fox in the hen house, you know, like they're just there to wreak havoc. So if you see those snakes, those are also very beneficial snakes. And the same thing with those water snakes too, you know, a lot of the water snakes I get, you know, like they're in the water, it's a chance that it's a cottonmouth, we need to kill them. Well, they're also kind of taking up areas that those cottonmouths could be inhabiting, right? Cottonmouths are known to eat other water snakes, especially the smaller ones. So they're already getting hit by multiple sides. So also being hit by humans can also be a little tough on them. But yeah, I think they all serve purposes, even the venomous ones. Like they all serve a really large purpose, and I like all of them. I mean, they're beautiful. I think so long as they're not an immediate threat to you or your family, we're all here on this planet to enjoy it and enjoy the splendor of the world around us. And a lot of the times we encounter them by going directly into their own backyard, right? Like we go to their house and we eradicate them there. So I guess all I would ask is that if it poses no immediate risk to you, your family, or your pets or anything, or your livestock, that you just leave them be.
That's special. Okay, I do have to ask this. Are snakes aggressive?
So there's a lot of myths around that, right? So I know that there's a lot of conversation about stuff like black racers, that they chase people. There hasn't been a lot of good evidence to show that that's exactly what they're trying to do. I know that there's some like Indian snakes and stuff like that will actively go after humans, but as far as I know here, there's no snakes that are aggressively trying to get at you. A lot of them are trying to get away.
Okay.
But most snakes are aggressive if you handle them. Yeah, like especially racers. I mean, the racers are really like tenacious animals. So like you'll pick them up and they'll immediately
You'll
start
pick them
biting. It's really interesting because I mean, like their immediate response is just to flight.
Right.
But they, you know, like they're also perfectly capable of fighting if you want to interact with them.
Have you ever picked up a snake and it was just really nice?
Absolutely. So there's plenty of snakes that like you can pick up and like they'll be more interested in actually leaving than anything else like that. A lot of the really small snakes, so like you'll run into things like crown snakes or like decay snakes or things like ringneck snakes, stuff like that. Really small snakes that like you might find out in the garden, like flip over. Really pretty snakes, and like they'll do nothing to you. Like you're able to just pick them up and handle them and have a good time with them. The only thing that is true, but also kind of not true about that statement, is that the ringneck snakes technically have a venom, but they are rear-fanged snakes, which means that they have them backwards. So in order to get you envenomated, they'd have to open up their mouths enough to have those come up and then come through your skin. But their heads are normally smaller than your pinky nail. So there's almost no chance that they can normally do that unless you get a really big ring snake.
The ring neck snakes, is that with the red ring at the?
Yes, or like a cream ring or like a yellow ring, stuff like that. Absolutely. So like you'll pick them up. And even those really large ones, if you don't give them the webbing in your fingers, there's no chance of you really getting bit. But even then, like their venom is not incredibly bad. There haven't been any cases of them envenomating people, or there's been two that I know of, but there haven't been many cases of them envenomating people, and even then it just makes people drowsy. So the idea of all venom being the same and could kill you and being a huge problem is also false, but I'd rather people be more cautious of the snakes that have high venom than like to be more reckless with them.
So then the ringneck snakes, I only know this because one of the houses I lived in had some, but they don't have the triangular shaped head either.
Right. So like that's also a huge difference. You'll find that a lot of good snakes, they have more kind of bullet-shaped heads or kind of like rounded off like heads, right? A lot of that more triangular heads you'll find in water snakes and things like cottonmouths, copperheads, and like your rattlesnakes out there, right? Like a lot of those viper type class animals. The only ones of those that are not vipers are the water snakes, but they are just trying to mimic it the same way. So like you'll run into plenty of animals that are trying to mimic other animals. Like I think one of those good examples are like sweat bees that try to go and like they have like the yellow and the black and like they're trying to look like yellow jackets and they say, "Don't eat me, I'm foul tasting." a lot of those water snakes will do something similar to where they'll flatten out their heads and extend their jaws out to make almost like an Indian arrowhead. So like they'll look like it, but not exactly be the same. So the shape is not always a really good indicator of what animal you're looking at.
That's what I grew up learning, that, you know, the triangular head
Right.
was, well, and of course the rattles, but
So now
Yes.
we're learning it could be a trick.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, because with the ringneck snakes that I was telling you, we had a lot of them at our house in Gwinnett County.
Right?
Good thing I didn't let the kids play with them if they're actually venomous.
Well, I mean, I do want to clarify that, like, the venom is not harmful to humans most of the times, and they're almost always too small to even be able to impact you. If I were to be honest, you probably need to minimal to any caution for them. You know, like, there's not much worry.
Well, it's kind of like a granddaddy longlegged spider. It's supposed to be the most poisonous spider there is, but yet it can't bite you, right?
Right.
Is that true?
Well, that's not true, but yes.
That's what I always heard.
Yes.
I don't like knowing that either.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a couple of things wrong with that. I mean, like, for one, they're not venomous, and then two, they're not even spiders, which is really interesting too.
What? What are
Yeah,
they?
I have to leave it there. I don't know anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
All these
yeah,
years.
they're not considered arachnids as far as I'm.
I did not
Aware.
know that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then so with that flat head and the triangle head, I feel the more important thing to be looking for is not necessarily the shape, but kind of the form that head comes in, right? So if you come across a cottonmouth, and like you can find this just by looking at them a couple times and then also looking at pictures and stuff, they have a head that almost looks like it's carved out of marble. It's very angular. So like all the kind of curves that it has, it's very kind of like slated or like slanted down, right? It's almost like a gemstone where it's just kind of like flat surfaces
Right.
just cut at an angle. And like you'll see that in cottonmouths and copperheads and stuff like that. And I believe they're still seen well in rattlesnakes, but not nearly as much. But yeah, look at the head and definitely do not touch any snakes if you're starting off until you can actively see the eye. If you can see the eye, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that to you.
Yeah. I think we're just going to call Noah.
Yes.
Noah the snake doctor.
Yeah, yeah. It's good work. I like it. I do it mostly now as nonprofit, but I had my pastor call me up, and like he was like, I've got a snake out here in my car.
In his car?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like they've been.
Is your pastor at your church?
Yes.
Oh,
mhm.
wow.
Like they've been going like up the street and like hanging around like the garage and just terrorizing his wife all the time. But we finally found it, and it was in the hood of the car. So he was kind of just up there in the wires and all that stuff, and that took me a long time to be able to finally like flush him out. But like, I don't know, like they're just very, very crafty animals. But yeah, no, I love it. I love any chance to be able to get in. I like to get in contact with them and stuff like that. And if you are interested in handling snakes, like especially venomous snakes, there's plenty of classes you're able to take for like venomous snake handling courses and stuff like that.
Wow. Like people take those classes?
Oh, absolutely.
Because they want to hold them.
Yes, or like handle them or remove them or stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not going to kill them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like just take them and moving them someplace else.
Peek.
Yeah.
Now when I see a snake, I'm going to have this little guilty Noah on my shoulder.
Don't kill
I
it. Don't
can't
kill it.
kill
Don't
I got to
kill
call
it.
Noah. I guess that's what we'll have to do. Jeez. Wow. Well, I feel like I'm all sort of snake educated.
I'm more so than I was when I got here.
Yes.
What are you more fascinated with, the snake
The-
thing
the
or the
spider
salamander
thing.
thing?
I'm
Oh, you're
honestly-
still stuck on the spider?
Wait a minute. I'm overloaded.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, the snake thing is interesting. Salamander life cycle is
Yeah,
very
the
interesting.
fin thing he was
Yeah.
talking about. That's
And what you
amazing.
get to do for a living.
I
I mean,
know.
really what you want to do, what makes
Oh,
you happy,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and who knew that was a profession?
Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't. I had no clue. I went into.
how did you find it? I'm curious.
It kind of found me. I mean, I went into education looking to do medicine because my mom was a nurse and I figured I'd make money, you know. But then I went through like a bunch of my classes and I found that while I was doing that research on the side, because it was supposed to be a good resume builder for all like the medical schools I wanted to go to, that I was enjoying my research a lot more than I was like my medical classes. And I was like, well, maybe there's a field in this. And like Dr. Carlos Camp really helped me out and pushed me along that path. And by the end of it, I decided that I wanted to do that instead. And I found a master's program, and they're all over, and like you can find them. But yeah, I went there and I started working on my research. At that point, it was just kind of I'm really loving this. It's super exciting. I'm doing what I like to do. I'm able to go there for free because I'm also teaching freshman level labs and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, you know, why not pursue this? And then I'm there for about a year, and I get all these emails from all the like department heads saying like job opportunity, job opportunity, job opportunity. And one of those emails was a job opportunity to go up to the NSA Mid-South Navy base up in Memphis, Tennessee. And I went up there and I did a herp survey, so looking for like the same stuff I've talked about, amphibians and reptiles and stuff like that. And I came back and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And like they brought me on full time. So it's like a lot of this stuff is not immediately put out there and is very obvious until after you've started. But there's plenty of fields if you want to work out in nature and work with a lot of these animals and creatures, critters.
Critters.
What a wonderful thing to be able to do something you love, and I
Right.
can tell you love
Not
it.
many
Absolutely, I
people
love
do
it.
what they love. It's,
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're about to get married. You've got a dream job. Dang. You got
Well,
life
let's
by
hope it
the
holds
kahunas.
And a creek behind your house, probably with plenty of snakes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Have you found any back there?
Yes. So like we found a common water snake. So it's like that's not just like common water snakes in general. It's like the actual name of it. So it's the common name is common. It's common water snake, but its actual species name is Nerodia cipodon. And he was super pretty. And just put him back and stuff like that. So I'm hoping to see if I can see some more hanging out around there. But it's been more trying to control the English ivy than anything else. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, like the
good luck with
yard
that.
comes calling. I haven't been able to be out and explore my yard as much as I'd like. Yeah.
It's there waiting on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. I feel a little bit better about snakes because prior to today I would kill them if I saw them.
Right.
but now I feel a little bit better about it. So it's been interesting.
It has.
It's been
I'm
very
still not sure if I
interesting.
wouldn't just kill him. I would try not to.
I promise, Noah, I'll call you first.
Yes, I appreciate that.
I can't speak for Kim, but I promise I'll call you first.
I get those all the time. I get the pictures and they're like, what snake is this? And I'm like, it's a rat snake. Leave him alone.
Don't hurt him.
Yes,
Don't
absolutely.
I don't
worry.
have Noah's number. I need to get that just
Yes,
in
you
case.
do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If we had any more time for it, I'd love to talk with you about any of the other creatures. But if not, if we're coming up on our time, I wouldn't mind coming back and talking to y'all a bit more about salamanders because that's even more in my wheelhouse.
All right. We have to do a whole. When can you do a whole segment on salamanders?
Probably coming up pretty soon.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
2 weeks from today.
Yes.
Sounds good.
I don't know. Did we talk to Lee about his schedule?
We not yet, but we will. All right, y'all. You heard it right here. In 2 weeks, or in a few episodes, I guess.
Yep.
We're going to talk about everything salamander, and you've learned so much about snakes too. I hope you've learned a whole lot about snakes. Yeah.
I hope so too.
Yeah. But we
Yeah,
appreciate.
I hope I wasn't too much of a bore.
No, I was fascinated.
I was a little cringy, the whole time. But
I kept
thinking
thinking,
about the snakes.
I kept feeling one
I
crawling
kept feeling
up my...
the mic wire, and I'm like, oh God. But it was very, very informative. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thanks for
appreciate y'all.
being
It's
here.
so refreshing to see
Yeah, thank you for
a
having
young
me.
person who's got their act together.
I know.
It's
I wouldn't say that.
and is easy
Yeah.
to talk to.
Yes.
I got some something to say. I love it.
Yeah, I want to say that I spent 2 years in Louisiana, and anybody who's down there knows like the stuff that gets down. Like down there in Louisiana, so
Yeah.
you know, maybe I'm coming back together.
Well, we'll figure that out, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we look forward to talking to you again, and thank you so much for being
Yes.
here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
It's
having
always
me.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes, thank y'all.
All right, so you heard everything snakes right here on Blind Squirrel Talk. Appreciate y'all tuning in again. I'm Lulu.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Noah.
And tune in again for all things salamanders.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.